Hello. Welcome to the Wonkette Weekend Live Chat. I'm Robin Pinocchia, and joining me is the lovely and talented Stephen Robinson. Um, that's my best Vanna White. Um, how are
Hello,
you doing
Robin.
today,
Welcome.
Stephen?
I am well, thank you. Though all is not well in the world, and that is my
No.
clever segue to you. So
Um,
tell us what's going.
so we decided
Horrible
to kick
stuff.
off. Oh, sorry. We decided to kick off today talking about the just darling Arizona abortion ban that is going to ban all abortion except for, hypothetically saving the life of the mother, even though not really. Like you got to make a call, and if you err on the side of, oh, hypothetically she could have lived, you're, shit out of luck. So that's really fun. That's
Yeah,
a
I
that's
mean
a fun thing they're doing.
most doctors aren't going to risk their livelihoods and prison time
Yeah.
for if it's safer horribly to let a patient bleed out, they will
Yeah.
probably do that. And it sounds callous, but that's reality, right? Like that's the
We live in a like we have a terrible healthcare system, and so it's not going to be helped too much by that.
And so these laws, there's been a lot of these laws occurring, right? Bans
Mhm.
occurring. The Arizona one is pre Arizona as an actual state.
Yeah,
It's
they're going back to their old law that they had before they were even a state. Like
and
that's where they're going with this.
I'd written a bit about I did not cover I mentioned the law in passing, but I mentioned of how Kyrsten Sinema this this ban, this barbaric ban, which will kill people, and has rendered half the population second class citizens. And she's literally spends the first part of the week in Kentucky at the Mitch McConnell Center. She's photographed behind McConnell's name and talking about it. What a
They're
wonderful
besties.
guy. I don't. There literally is no precedent for this. Like you don't. Even the so-called moderates in the Republican caucus, so Murkowski,
Mhm.
Collins, if their states, if they had like, if their states had somehow banned all guns, so like
Yeah,
somehow Alaska banned all guns, like not that it's a Democratic legislature there, but they banned all guns. You're not going to see Murkowski at the, Nancy Pelosi wine club
yeah,
event shortly before the midterms talking about how great Nancy Pelosi is.
yeah.
That is
No,
just like you can't conceive of this. And so what Cinema's doing is just she's useless. Like what are you supposed to actually what are you for if not to protect people?
this one I think she's just primarily for ball busting. Like that's pretty much what she's going for. Honestly, people get addicted to contrarianism to some
Mhm.
degree, and I think that is very much a large part of it. Like she likes that people, she does this shit, and then people are like, "Why are you not doing the thing you're supposed to be doing as a Democrat?" And she's like, "Because I'm super cool friends with Mitch McConnell," and um, I think that's a very big part of it, frankly. Like she just
Yeah.
wants to, be that person because, she actually does not stand for anything.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, and everyone thought there was some sort of grand circuitous plan about why she's doing this or why she's, and there's not. I mean, I think what you described is the most straightforward. And she probably exists in that MSNBC bubble where what she's doing, keeping liberals in check and
Yeah.
being buddies with Republicans is a positive. So if you're in that bubble and
Yeah.
you don't get out of that bubble, why would you not believe it's all fun and games? Uh, I I'd like to talk, if I may, about because it felt like after Dobbs, and again, all
Hmm.
bodily autonomy being stripped away, there was a sense of this was obviously a losing issue for Republicans for good
Yeah.
reason. And I think it felt as if Democrats believed that Republicans would lay down and die and accept the inevitable blue wave resulting from an anti-Dobbs fervor, and that's not what Republicans do. So
No, generally speaking, they do the opposite of that.
they've either lied or they will have doubled down in their awful policies, it seems, and they've just made the argument more about crime and brown people roaming, bands of brown people roaming through city streets in Wisconsin and Oregon,
Mhm.
and they've benefited from. They realize, and something you and I have written about for a while now, is that people love to say they're pro-choice.
Yeah.
And it just gets on my nerves. I see this here, like every Republican in Oregon or Washington specifically will say, "Oh, I'm personally pro-choice. I don't know. I disagree with overturning Roe, but." And then here's every reason why they will vote for Republicans who are
Yeah.
affirmatively anti-choice, and it doesn't matter because this is who you're voting for. And so Republicans don't even try to. They understand that, like, yes, I can go out and say I support the most extreme Lindsey Graham style ban because all I have to do is say scary brown people,
Yeah.
point to poor people in the streets. Oh my God, you rich person will have to step over a poor person in downtown, and you will obviously still vote for me over the liberal.
Yeah. Because this is the thing, they do have a lot, they tend to do a lot of like issues where people they sort of turn people into single issue voters for a variety of their issues. And people do very much enjoy the whole like, yeah, we're getting, cracking down on crime thing. And also like the general, oh, I'm scared, like, playing on people's general fears of, brown people and poor people, really, because, those poor people, they don't have enough, so they're going to be coming for your stuff. Like they're coming for you and your like items and your money and your jobs, and they're coming for you. I mean, that like basically like they're coming for you is pretty much the entire Republican story. If you like, other than it's like abortion and they're coming for you.
Well,
Um,
fear is it's an emotion. You've got humans, because we're not Vulcans. And I know
yeah,
a lot of Democrats wish everyone was a Vulcan voter, but they are not. And they're pushing on emotion. And if you don't, the negative you can push on positive emotions, but when people do, that's somehow seen as divisive. So, oh my goodness, talking about changing the system and making things better for poor people, oh my God, go away, Warren, if that divisive emotional message. The status quo and adults in the room, and because people love being treated like children, that's the
yeah,
message
it's
that
really, I mean,
will
if anything's
register.
going to convince me, it's by telling me that I'm a child. So,
Yeah. So going back to my home state, not home, but where I live now. So Oregon, Christine Drazen has been leading she's a Republican here, was the minority leader in the House. She's been leading every poll recently. And that is, due in part to Bessie Johnson, one-time Democrat, now running unaffiliated. Johnson has loathed Kate Brown and Tina Kotek, who's now running for the longest
yeah.
time. So that's inevitable. And just some quick background. When I had written about this before, earlier this week, the response had been often, well, Kotek would be winning if not for the Johnson spoiler candidacy. And this is something we've discussed a lot, where people will say, oh, Democrat would obviously have won if not for Stein or Nader or whoever
Yeah.
which
Well, this
overlooks.
is interesting because Johnson is, to her right. So like in a lot of ways. So like,
Yeah, it overlooks that there's clearly an issue within the party, that
yeah,
because, it implies like she got enough, signatures to run. She's got enough donation to run. She's got enough name recognition to run. And there's an issue within the party. I think within the party, there's been a long-term kind of, there's this assumption Democrats always win. But if you go back to before 2016, Kate Brown and Tina Kotek
hmm
are very different type of candidates than the, Democrats, usually white men, there was one
yeah,
woman, Toronto, who were winning. the kind of sort of moderate centrist. Johnson was not sort of out of, forgive the pun, left field amongst those candidates. So there's been that schism. A lot of
Yeah.
it's rooted in so-called quote unquote wokeness or identity politics. And so every week someone will flip out over something Bill Maher has said. And Bill Maher's annoying.
Oh my God, I'm just like, I keep falling for it every single Saturday. I'm like, oh, Bill Maher's trending on Twitter. And I'm like, I'm not going to look. And then I look and it's like, oh, yes, for like the exact same thing he said last week. How, like,
well, as awful as he is, though, he represents a sort of, these were Democratic voters. And especially if you look at certain states like Ohio, and these are Democratic voters who, since Obama, have had issues like, they didn't like sort of the Obama's apparent intellectualism, and that's not Bill Maher. Bill Maher, being a misogynist, mostly had issues with Hillary Clinton.
yeah.
And so you combine that, the misogyny, and then of course perhaps a legitimate working class voter issue with seeming like the professors or the elite taking over, and that schism, because everyone wants to believe that the reason Bill Clinton won in '92 was that here's all of the policies that he had in common with Hillary Clinton, or here's how he's a wonk, or here's how he's very smart, as opposed to a guy who presented as a regular Joe in many ways.
People thought he was cool. He played the saxophone and people were like, oh my God, that man is like got something really different. He's got some kind of je ne sais quoi.
So yes, instead the argument was like, here's the takeaway. He passed welfare reform. That's Clintonianism. Yeah. What? That's probably one of the worst things he did, but that's been the struggle. And
well, it's the whole like third way thing where, people like, for whatever reason, maybe they haven't thought about things enough. I think like a lot of people are like, okay, it's like the middle is always the best no matter what. So if you just sort of like do that, you'll be fine. And it's, generally, I hate to say it, but it's people who don't really think about things like too much, who believe that. But
yeah, I would disagree with the idea. Michael Moore, I posted that Bill Maher's essentially a conservative now. And I can see some of that point. I would disagree. And going back to with Bessie Johnson on this, I think a major part of the Democratic coalition has for years included annoying white men like Bill Maher. And I was in a writing group with one classic annoying white guy, and he was a longtime Democratic voter, but he railed against PC-ness, hated Hillary Clinton, of course. It was a sort of almost textbook profile of guys like that. And these, they were in the Midwest and they were whatever, and they were and some of those guys were, if you watch old West Wings, it's like, well, Bill Maher is kind of one of these characters from the West Wing, lecturing women, thinks he's the smartest guy in the room.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's no black people or trans people in that White House. It's a white male led world, and we're supposed to be so inspired that the Bill Maher type liberal gets along with sort of the, Alan Alda type conservative, quote unquote. And they, it's all about white men getting along and running the country together.
Which,
and that's
it's easy for them, basically.
You have no real skin in the game, right?
Yeah.
So that schism is real. I see how there's a schism in the Republican Party where, all these never Trumpers got pushed aside by the Bobarts and so forth and the Greens. But I've seen where they've got this new winning coalition of former Democrats. Whereas for Democrats are like, well, we don't need the Bill Mahers. We don't need these guys. Why should we have to compromise issues? I'm not saying to compromise those issues.
We don't need with like every subgroup of people at this point.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not saying you have to compromise, or like, God forbid, I'm not saying to agree with Bill Maher or be like these guys, but it's almost like a business proposition. It's like, well, this is like, how did you lost 20-30% of your supporters? Where are you regaining them in the coalition? And of course, Schumer had famously said in 2016 that for every every guy pissed about NAFTA, every working class person didn't like Hillary Clinton. We were going to gain all these people in the suburbs. It shouldn't
Yeah.
happen. And so it's we have a very tenuous coalition. And I think what's happening in Oregon will be part of a huge shift in this. Like Christine Drazan's been on Fox News pretty much regularly now, and they're playing up the fact that, the crime, the violence, the anarchist state, the schools, the learning loss. Tina Kotek voted to close down the schools and all of this. And, the Democrats have not been really pushing the fact that Drazan is so affirmatively anti-abortion. And she's said things like, oh, I would just follow the law.
Yeah.
She's not going to support, and she's referred to it as abortion tourism, like using using funds to
Yeah.
expand access for obviously out of state travelers. So she would be a nightmare. And it's not necessarily a nightmare. It's a very real possibility.
Yeah.
I don't see any preparation. You talk to folks around here, they're like, what? Of course the Democrats going to win. And they're like, what? Huh? Like how far ahead is Kotek? Like, not at all. Like Drazan's been ahead of
Yeah.
polls. There's a very big bubble mentality from some folks here, and that would be quite concerning. Reagan Democrats are.
Just trying yeah, the thing is that like Reagan Democrats or the more conservative Democrats that have been like, well, if we might end up voting for Republicans, you don't know, have generally been less villainized than the left.
Mhm.
Like,
Well, they're seen as
it's
they're
like,
seen as viable swing voters.
yeah,
So if I'm like a middle-aged white guy or suburban white woman, it's okay that I would vote for fascists, like an outright fascist
yeah,
party, because I believe that I went to New York to see Hamilton and I saw a homeless person, and that kind of was a bummer on my trip. So now I want to vote for fascists. And I think schools might be teaching my kid how to be gay, even if that's not true. So I'm going to vote for fascists. That's all relevant, and we should address that. But if a woman on the left,
yeah,
it's like, well, here's things that I wish the party was doing that would my key issues. And it's like, well, shut up, Robin. You're going to vote for fascists instead. You
yeah,
should sit down and shut up. And that's not a winning. It's very clear. Voters can
yeah.
tell who you care about. This party cares about these people. They take these people for granted. It's not a winning. It's just not winning. I saw like someone online was talking about, well, thinking about 2024 beyond our ideal candidate, and they listed, of course, obviously no Democratic socialists. And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
well, it's okay if you don't have to like Democratic socialists. You don't have to like the left. But if you believe that the ideal structure is sort of, here's 20% at least voters who we want to show up, give us money, vote for our candidates reliably. Don't stay home because then they're responsible for slavery coming back. But we never want them leading. God forbid they run for anything. God forbid they
Yeah.
ever take a nomination for anything. No, they should just sit down and shut up. Is just not a winning.
I also, here's the thing. I think that presenting us as like scary or like, oh no, that's like it's a third rail kind of thing does not help Democrats in general, because then, the swing voters that they, want are like, if they're scared of these people, if like the regular Democrats are scared of these people, then, obviously not most extreme, but like, the purest form of, left-wing politics is terrifying, which
Oh yeah.
it really isn't. Like, it's like, oh no, people will all have health care. It'll be terrifying. There'll be chaos in the streets.
Well, yeah, and
Like,
Youngling has no problem campaigning
yeah.
for Carrie Lake. He has no problem being,
Well, they don't ever
Ron
present. Yeah.
DeSantis campaigning for him. And I think there are like, you know, I would guarantee you that Tim Ryan in Ohio, and is a guy I otherwise like, but he would be very, oh no, I could never have Gavin Newsom, even though, Gavin Newsom is pretty popular amongst
Yeah.
Democrats, I couldn't have him. He's always from California and he's liberal. I couldn't have him campaign for me.
Yeah.
Because swing voters would be, I need to win over these Republicans.
There's
And
a lot of
whereas,
Steving going around is really like, it's
yeah,
like,
I mean, literally, they don't
too,
have any. Drazen has no. She would she's on Fox News, right? So she doesn't present that as being, oh, it's scary. I need to go on MSNBC. I need to present myself as an MSNBC Republican.
Yeah.
Be on Morning Joe. No, she's full on Fox News on Laura Ingraham, who's a racist and everything. She doesn't care. She's not afraid of that, which normalizes Fox News.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Like there's a lot of normalization, whereas I do think that the Democrats, in an effort a lot of the time to be like, no, we're not scary like these people, actually end up, by super denormalizing us, or whatever that word would be, making themselves look like, oh, okay, well, you're not too far from these people. So, what's the matter with you? One thing that I was talking about with you earlier, not on here, is that Republicans never admit start from the premise that their views are unpopular. Like, even if they are, they're just like, nope, this is what the people want. It doesn't matter. They'll just be like, this is, wonderful for everyone. Everyone will love not having abortion be legal. And even if that's not true, they'll just keep saying it. And, if you just keep saying things, there's always going to be a certain amount of people who go along with you. Like, that is just the rule. But a lot of the time, you'll see people on the left sort of like accepting the premise that, left-wing views or liberal views are deeply unpopular and could never appeal to anyone who, wasn't one of us. And this even goes for like regular middle of the road Democrat views. They're like, oh, okay, we have to, like, if we want to get anything done, we sort of have to like do it, like put some peas and mashed potatoes so that like no one will like really notice. We'll make some veggetti, people won't notice. We'll do it slowly, incrementalism, like.
Oh yeah.
And it makes it, it's like we're conceding that, no one would ever want this, instead of being like, hey,
absolutely,
this is awesome. We should all enjoy this.
And the reason I go back to Drazen on this, because it's so, and Youngin, because the idea of the model, it's very clear that the Murkowski Collins model is gone. So Murkowski and Collins were both like, oh, well, we're not scary Republicans. We, they voted to not overturn, to not repeal the ACA, even though they didn't vote for it originally. But more importantly, we would support some sensible gun safety legislation. Even though we're from rural states, we are pro-choice. We will never, vote for, even though we will put a judge in who's anti-choice, but we're not going to vote for an outright abortion ban.
We'll just assist it.
And Drazen is just running as, she might as well be Marsha Blackburn, right?
Yeah.
And she's just, it's almost impressive in fact, because she's not running scared in Oregon. She's like, this is what I believe. And as you said, she can go on Fox, repeat it, hit the crime in these states. And it's working in ways that, Democrats, and I'm often told, well, it's no, the rules are against us. So you've got to appeal to white people because more white people vote Republican. And so, Tim Ryan has to talk about the ways that he has voted with Trump on trade or other things like that, as if Trump was the expert on trade. I mean, you could just say, I support, and Trump happened to be, in the room, but all that does is concede the fact that Democrats were kind of crappy on trade until Trump made it an issue, which I think is not the best thing to concede, but it feels like a lot of these guys are, because they'd rather say, I voted with Trump on trade because Trump has made these issues on trade, I guess mainstream, rather than be like, oh, I ever agreed with Robin about trade and all these other liberals who were saying this about NAFTA and TARP for years prior to when Trump was hosting the Apprentice. So that aspect of like, what Oregon could become with Republican governor should not be underestimated. You can see what's happened in Virginia with anti-abortion bans and all these CRT crap and everything. And what Republicans could easily do in the state with Drazen in charge is scary.
Yeah.
And I do think, the fact that she's not running scared from this, even post-ops, you would think that she'd more likely post-ops to be, don't worry, I'll come in and I'll make sure those homeless people go away.
Yeah.
And admittedly, that we need to do a humane situation is better than but instead there's no situation, right? There's no solution. So people eventually will support the inhumane solution,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And that's what
And
we're seeing.
again, I keep saying this, the humane solution is like the least expensive option.
Sure.
The problem with all of this is that we can't do the things that make sense because people will fearmonger. Oh, people won't learn responsibility. They won't be responsible. They'll become spoiled, and that'll be the worst thing that ever happens to anyone. Which again, you and I have discussed that spoiled people seem to have done pretty well for themselves as a class. Like, people are like, well, we want to see the homeless people pull themselves up by their bootstraps. We don't want to just give them handouts. Yeah, give them handouts. Give them handouts, give them places to live. There are 16 million empty houses just hanging out in the country. Like,
Oh
we don't
yeah.
need to build more houses. We have houses for everyone. We
Well,
have enough for everyone. And we actively choose to not help people. It
well,
is a choice.
I mean, Arizona's entire economy is somewhat, based on housing human beings and
Yeah.
feeding them. But it's so
No,
how
they've
how is
literally
it no
admitted,
longer a
yeah,
profit unless, well, they have to be bad people
they
for it
have
to
to
make a
commit a
profit.
crime.
It's like, I don't understand. And yet at the same time, they're happily criminalizing poverty. So it's just
Mhm.
sort of, well, you're
Well, I
already
mean,
criminalizing
I
poverty.
didn't, and there was someone last week, I can't even think of who, like, I'm losing track of these people, who was like, whatever happened to prisons? Why can't, and like, why don't we just commit all of the, like,
Literally,
why can't
are
we
there
just send
no
the homeless
prisons?
people to prison?
So he literally says,
It was a
like a
woman who like literally
pre-report.
like listed up, like, we need these people to be like committed to mental institutions and prisons and all this other shit, just because they shouldn't be homeless. It's like, well, don't don't create a society where like people are becoming increasingly homeless because no one can afford to live anywhere. We People don't want subsidized housing in their areas. They don't want, to just give homeless people a place to live. And then they're like, why are there homeless people? This is so weird. There are people on the street. How did that happen? Like,
Well, yeah, same with New York or other states. It's sort of like
most people cannot
until the
afford.
booms came in, the cost of housing went in insane
Yeah.
direction, and then you wound up with people on the streets, and then all that became is, oh well, now all the no one wants to see, it's an aesthetic issue, no one wants to see them, and it's a public
Mhm.
safety issue and it's a public health issue. I get that, but the problem is I feel like from the left there's no one coming up with what is the true, as you said, build housing, do something to, but like just saying let's
It's
have
the least expensive option.
the
Like,
Steinbeckian tent cities and kind of, oh, what can we do? It's like, look, okay, well, what's going to happen is you're going to get Christine Drazen and she's going to come in and she's going to do the sweeps, and it's going to be like Giuliani, right?
yeah, I
Like
was gonna say
the
that. Yeah.
people deep down, like, oh, I kind of like this. And some people are shocked, like, oh, well, how could Oregon, like New York City,
Yeah.
had a fascist as mayor? So I think that Oregon will possibly elect
Yeah.
um fascist friendly Christine Drazen.
I
Oh,
don't, I think that the
she will
general
have
skeptic,
such a prominent role. She will be a keynote speaker in 2024 if she's governor. They want to bring her out and just thumb her nose at the liberals, because that's such a triumph. They would have flipped Virginia, but that's the South, right? But then
Mhm.
Oregon as well. So it's very much a concern. Um, Something we'd been talking about and you'd written about earlier regarding Marjorie Taylor Greene. There were folks who were very upset, and I keep seeing this a lot, of Mary Patola, who had just defeated Sarah Palin, which is wonderful, and they were just upset. Well, why does she not get the same attention, the media attention, as Marjorie, three names, because that's very clever.
Mhm.
But Marjorie, it's Marjorie Taylor Greene, and it's just, well, because I don't know. I don't know how to explain how not
I
just
mean, first of
politics,
all,
anything
like
works.
I just covered her on Friday, and in Matilda, and in the first paragraph, I linked to a thing that you wrote about her. So it's not that people are not covering it. A lot of the issue that I think people really don't realize is, you know, things are being covered. They're just not being shared on social media. So if you want, be the change you want in the world and share things, the kinds of things that you want to read on social media. People assume that we have no idea, we don't know what they're reading. Yeah,
I
they're
know.
reading all the Marjorie Taylor Greene. They,
Yes.
that is what
Well,
gets
because
the
she
most
is
traffic.
a
You know,
fundamental threat to the nation. And she was not really given power. She was sort of seized it. I
yeah,
often mention how after the 2020 election, Republicans were pushing their own sort of anti-squad. So these
yeah.
nice, respectable women of color. I would tell you their names, but you probably won't remember them. And
I
if I
can't
describe
remember
them,
that. You
you would
told me the
fall
other day. I have no
you
idea who
would
they are.
you would fall asleep listening to them. But they were women of color, like the squad, quote unquote squad, and they were conservative. This was awesome. This is their squad. No one cares about them.
Mhm.
And the ideal would be that they would get the attention. They would promote, their GOP agenda, and of course the crazies, Green and Bobart, the QAnoners. McCarthy was going to keep them in check, which he didn't. They slapped him around like they pushed him in a locker,
Yeah,
and they are running the show, and they are on Fox News. They are pushing their agenda. They are promoting affirmatively terrible stuff. So of course they get attention. And also, they are, I think one recently, whenever I see something with Green is on either Steve Bannon's podcast or other podcasts. She's reaching constituents, or Charlie Kirk, and we've talked about this a lot.
yeah,
You know, Politicians would love to show up on the Breakfast Club. It's election time if you see them on the Breakfast Club. Oh, I guess I need to talk to some black
yeah.
people, but not like daily, every day.
No, no. And
Like
that is
we
something that
talked to
is,
Charlie Kirk.
I also think that we are doing ourselves a disservice by not really like building people up from the bottom the way that Republicans have been doing. Like, first of all, like you know, we could be providing a lot of economic opportunity to people and helping them out. Uh, but instead we're like, okay, no, just the same people will talk all of the time. I do think that we need way more left-wing media, and we do need more open your mouth, constantly make stories. That's what they're doing. And you don't have, it doesn't have to be like crazy, but like, even like Elizabeth Warren, I think does well being like, she's not, being super casual on Twitter, but she'll, make stories by, saying like, hey, here's what's going on. It's not as opaque. And I think a lot of the time, some Democrats sort of make everything seem very opaque. Like, you don't really need to know what's like actually happening. That's kind of boring. And we don't want to like say, like, draw attention to fucking everything is really like
Oh
what I
yeah,
gotta say
I
to that.
mean,
Um,
the centrists are very big on these are the good Democrats who go do their homework. They don't talk on social media, and the ones who do, they mention the squad. They don't pass legislation, and they don't, God forbid you advocate for anything, but they're useless. So we haven't seen that Green New Deal legislation. They just love to bash this. And the trolls, I get why trolls do this, but
yeah,
the point is, it's not as if the sainted Nancy Pelosi doesn't go on media. Like, so she
she goes
was
on specific media.
she
That
was
is, yeah,
she had the famous interview with Maureen Dowd, knocking the then new freshman women who were on social media. But social media is democratizing. So, AOC doing an Instagram live with her constituents probably plays better
yeah,
than Speaker of the House with Maureen Dowd, at having wine and a ridiculously expensive brunch in San Francisco. I love ridiculously expensive brunch in San Francisco. I'm not bashing that. I'm just saying, politically speaking, we are getting creamed on appearing out of touch
Yeah.
and out of the mainstream. And everyone says, well, all Republicans are rich and Republicans have money. But yeah, Republicans are very big on trying to reach their constituents, talking to them as one of them. They would never, as Sinema said, oh, well, you don't want to, the best thing you do for children is not give them everything they want. No,
Yeah.
what Republicans have done is,
They would
no,
never
you believe that.
insult. They don't insult their base. Like they're not like, oh man, you know who is terrible? Everyone who votes for us.
No.
Worst people ever. You know who's really great though? The people who are voting for the other party. They are amazing. They're the best. They're the best people. They're the best people. Like Trump is always telling his people like, oh, you're the best people, you're so fabulous. And then other people are like, oh, they look pretty good to me as well. Maybe we should try and do something that appeals to them rather than
They speak
our
to
people.
they speak to their anger and their strengths, like, okay, you feel the election was stolen from you, we're going to pass these laws, these voter suppression laws and these anti-abortion laws. And so when Sinema talks about, oh, well, people upset about the filibuster just aren't used to, they want short-term gain or immediate gratification, like spoiled brats. And it's like, well, when you have a right, like voting and bodily autonomy, and it's taken from you very quickly, you kind of don't want to wait
that pretty quickly.
Yeah, like that. Okay, I'm sorry that I'm a purity pony for that, but like, no, you these people on party line votes, bare majorities, are stripping us of our rights. And at the federal level, you are blocking any attempt to address that. And even in a 50-50 Senate, where Democrats represent 40 million more people. So it's just fundamentally whatever her argument is absurd. But yeah, I mean, Democrats are often Biden's done it, everyone's done it. I always get lectured about why they have to. There's specifically a lot of trolls will say, well, you just don't know how politics work. They have to speak diplomatically. It is whatever, it's okay, fine. But when I'm getting, if I'm punching you in the face, do you really want someone to be like, okay, well, look, Stephen has his reasons for punching you in the face. I'm going to ask him to stop. But you have to understand, you kind of annoyed him.
Yeah.
Can you stop like, I'll ask him to stop doing this, but can you stop being so annoying certain ways? Like, come on, let's stop. Can you stop being annoying? We could focus on kitchen table issues or something. And then we'd all be happy and we get common sense solutions for everyone. And Republicans don't do that. Instead, they're like, these assholes are coming for you. They treat you like crap. They treat you awful. And I'm your, Ted Cruz is terrible. Ted Cruz is a coward. Ted Cruz is awful. But if you are a Republican, if you're in a room with him, you believe that he's going to be fighting the zombies on the other side of the door with you. He's not trying to tell you why the zombies have a point and why you need to reason with the zombies. But that's, yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, a lot of centrists, a lot of trolls, they detest her for particular reasons. And it was always easy. Like, Ocasio-Cortez is no more radical on policy, economic policy, than Paul Ryan was. And Paul Ryan was presented as the wonk and normal.
He's a real numbers. Say what you want about him, but he's a real numbers guy.
Exactly. And Democrats could have done the same thing.
It was like saying that.
Democrats, Warren is somehow Schrodinger's Democrat amongst a lot of centrists. So she's either can't be trusted because she was once a Republican, or she's some radical socialist who can't be seen near anyone because she's so polarizing. So Jennifer Rubin has said that about because Mandela Barnes has slipped in the polls against Ron Johnson because Republicans are predictably shifting the focus away from abortion, where Democrats obviously have an advantage, and making it all about criminals roaming through the streets of Milwaukee. And the argument's like, well, if Democrats blow this, as what Jennifer Rubin said, it'll be Sanders and Warren to blame. And I'm like, what? How? What do they do? Is it just literally existing and being liberals? Like, he can't hide the fact that he supports their policies. And if, you know, again, it's sort of the Schrodinger's Democrat thing. So Sanders somehow tanked Hillary by not campaigning hard enough for her in the Rust Belt. But then when he campaigned for Gillum in Florida, that killed Gillum's chances because, you know, every Hispanic person was like, oh no, here comes the communist Castro lover.
Because they're
So it's
trying
like,
to find a better way of saying, why don't you all just go away? Like that's really like how can we be, you know, diplomatic about telling you all to fuck off? Like that's really
well, how do
what
you,
it is.
but how do you win if you like, don't, where is your, how do you win elections if you don't want a significant number of your supporters to be seen? No one wants, it just feels like, you know, to quote Jim Morrison, no one wants to be the backdoor man, right? I'm
Yeah.
showing up and I don't want to be seen.
I
That's
mean,
embarrassing.
some do, but
I felt like he was
I'm
very
sorry.
affirmatively,
I went like
he was very affirmatively torn about the issue. I don't want to be, I am this.
I mean, I heard some things about Jim Morrison.
No, yes, it's a different, now we're
Yeah, no.
literal or figurative. Let's, okay, so now let's moving. So I don't, it's not good politics. I don't understand, like, our beliefs are popular. Liz Warren is like this old, like, college professor old lady. I get if you don't like her, but she's not, I mean, Republicans have provided examples of genuinely scary ass people. And I don't know, it's
And they're like, oh my God, no, Elizabeth Warren. She's like, you know, just terrifying. People are going to faint in the streets. I mean, I think, you know, what happened to a large degree is that, you know, as someone said in the comments earlier, I can't figure out where it was, you know, the Democratic Party moved very much to the right after Reagan and Dukakis. We've discussed that before. I think that social media has presented an issue to like the entire nation, basically, in terms of like now learning what people believe and how people are more so than they did at one point. Like, I think that, you know, everyone was very much in their own little bubbles, you know, like they said, but in a different way than people were saying in 2016. Like, if you're like a regular, you know, moderate Democrat, you watch MSNBC and everything, you assume that, like, you know, that you're about as left as it's getting. Like that's like, you're the end, you know, there aren't really, like, this is like back in the day. There are like a lot, like there are like a few like wacky hippies in colleges and things like that. But, you know, generally speaking, they don't really count. There's like 5 of them at most. Then I think like through social media, and the same thing I think happened on the right, there were a lot of, it suddenly became apparent that there was actually a very large contingent of people with like way further left views that like the media generally sort of didn't acknowledge. Like, people a lot of the time had no idea that we even existed. Even a lot of us on the left, like who did have those views, were like very much underestimated the number of us that existed. Like, you know, I'm very used to like, oh my God, single payer healthcare, that's horrifying. We couldn't have that. Or, you know, oh, you know, it's lovely and it's so super nice and I love it too. But think of the others will never go for it. Like, not the others, they're the others, they'll never go for it, they'll never like it. And I do think that, you know, it has been a hard adjustment, sort of realizing that the actual like further left is way bigger than anyone thought. And that's sort of like, you know, I think upsetting for some people.
Oh yeah. Well, I think a lot of also what's there is sort of this arrogance of, you must like our candidates, that I've seen a lot of. So Republicans, for good or for ill, do fight for building trust amongst their base, amongst their base of supporters and their voters. So, Trump voters, and that's why I'm sometimes resistant when people dismiss it as a cult, because it just
Mhm.
means dismissing people as being brain damaged. Whereas it's like, well, no, they trust this person. Sometimes you
Yeah.
trust someone,
They're being given what they want.
they're going to believe the person they trust over someone they don't trust.
Mhm.
And this will happen a lot, like things of like, okay, well, here's how we lost gains in certain these states over the past decade or so, and inevitably someone responds, well, the email lady told you how she could give you job training in in these rural towns, and they rejected her, and it wound
Yeah.
up being like, okay, well, yes, Hillary Clinton's policies are going to be affirmatively better, obviously, for union voters in Ohio who fled for Trump, or in Michigan and in Wisconsin and other areas. But there was never some reflection of, for whatever reason, there was no trust that that she was the one going to help them. They trusted Trump instead, and instead the argument was like, oh, they only trust them because they're racist and
Yeah.
misogynist, and that doesn't become about your issue. Then it's become these people are irredeemable, and it's like, okay, well, they're racist. Here's how we can kind of reach them when they're racist. I mean, it's same when, like, you know, people were talking about future elections and Kamala Harris, who's not polling well with those specific groups that would be necessary to win in the Rust Belt and thus win the presidency. It's just, well, they're just racist. And okay, well, either we have candidates who can appeal to those voters and win, or we find like, who are the new candidates that are going to flip, because the
Yeah.
never Trumpers aren't crazy about Kamala either. So, or the vice president either. So, like, I don't, it's
I
to
feel like
me, it,
I feel like there's too much reliance on um do this or you're a bad person, which I don't think resonates with people as well as some people think it does. Like, I think that there are people who believe that they are exerting social pressure, which is,
Mhm.
one way. It is one way of doing things. Um, they're, trying to make it be like, oh, well, if you do this, then you're bad or you're not cool, and we will socially reject you. And that doesn't work unless you're aspirational. Which is like a weird way of putting it. Like, unless people are like, wow, I want to be just like you, that sort of like social rejection doesn't work. And once you socially reject people, they sort of almost decide, okay, well, then screw you. I don't want anything to do with you at all anyway.
Yeah.
And I
As I
think that
said,
that,
negging is not a
yeah,
necessarily good political strategy or real life dating
yeah.
strategy.
No, negging is
Terrible.
bad across the board.
So breaking you down and saying you're terrible and I can help, but I'm the only one who can perhaps help you or whatever, it's not good, as opposed to being, and yeah, like every rom com, you prefer the guy who's like, you're always great. I like
Yeah.
that you have your food on the side, whatever. And that makes you feel special. And I think Republicans are doing, they're like, these people are mocking you. You are special. You are, and and I get hit on this a lot, but the rhetoric is not one of, let me put it this way, it's more of you and I are friends, and the rhetoric comes across more of, you are seeing me hurt people and saying, oh, come on, you're better than that, Stephen.
Yeah.
Stop hurting those people. As opposed to the people who I am hurting should be the people who are the highest priority to you. And you're like, this guy is an asshole, and I'm going to stop him no matter what it takes. I don't care about any Senate rules or whatever. I am in your corner. This guy is always
Yeah.
hurting you and whatever. And Republicans do that, and Democrats are more likely. I rarely feel as if they are, unless they're trying to get black people to vote for them or queer people to vote for them, but directly stating, you know, this is what these people are doing to queer people.
Mm.
They suck. Everyone who supports those views, and not, as you were saying, like telling
Because
people they're
people get
terrible doesn't work.
scared. Like,
Yeah, but you should be gearing towards, at least, um I don't expect Ted Cruz to be a better person. I'm trying to
mhm.
do whatever I can do to help people who are struggling and suffering. And I think that's been the dilemma, um, of how to communicate. Because every election, there's a hope, as we've said, that this will be too far. The
Yeah.
Republicans will go too
There's
far.
never going to be, there's no such thing as too far at all. It's not going to happen. Like, there's never going to be like someone, if anyone was going to be too far, it was going to be Trump. Give up the ghost on that one. It is not happening. Yeah, no, that is not the way that things are going to go. We need a different direction to go with something else.
And you'd written about Marjorie Green, have her freak out about
they're gonna kill you all. Like,
yes, even though she's like a vile human being and clearly promotes hurting other people, it's really Republicans who are on a defensive from liberal and you know, no one wants to do. Although Godwin gave a pass on this, but it is Nazi. I mean, the Nazis were not like, oh, let's go kill some, you know, people who haven't really done anything. They've like, no.
Yeah, they created. Well, they turned people. They're like, oh no, Jewish people are a threat to us, and so we're just fighting back. And that is like how it's always presented.
Oh yeah, the most chilling being when people talk about the final solution, the background with that being of there were Jews who were like fleeing and leaving, and it was like, oh, I guess if you kind of steal everyone's property and torture them, and then they have to leave their homes, they might be real mad and they'll come back and hurt us.
Yeah.
So we can't let them leave, and we now have to kill them. So that's what escalated it, and it's sort of scary to see that now, just sort of like, oh, these Democrats are really angry now. I don't know why. I don't know why they're so upset, even though we call them groomers and pedophiles, and we're trying to keep them from voting, and we're stripping away their bodily autonomy. You know, it's like you have Alito being like,
why can't you just repeat this to us? Like,
why can't I go to my house without you people protesting as if you have a
we're the real Americans. I don't know why I do that voice for everyone, but
it's a wonderful one.
Yeah. You know, one of the other things that I was looking at today, let me just grab the actual thing. There were people actually like whining, like some Australian guy being like, you know, the media doesn't pay enough attention to Democratic gaffes. Like, they say sentences wrong sometimes, and it's not a 3 to 4 week story. I don't understand this. Obviously, the media is out to get us. And again, that does go to people are just not actually that interested in someone saying a sentence wrong when, you know, we've been through 4 years of like everything is crazy and terrible all of the time. Like, that's not going to get anyone's blood pressure up as a story. But
I don't. What do they want? Because they were talking about Harris had made a gaffe, and it probably wasn't reported on. She talked about
she just like misspoke.
Yeah, it was North Korea. She should have said South Korea or whatever. But like, what more do they want? Like, clearly, she's not getting the back nine pickup for her sitcom. Like, it's not like she's incredibly popular. You know, and I know Harris supporters will be fierce by my reading polls. I have nothing personal. It's the vice president just reading polls. So it's like, what do conservatives want? It's like, well, it's not as if she is this Teflon politician. It's being reported. I mean, it's being reported on, or it obviously has had an effect.
Clearly, like, someone found out about it. So, someone out there is reporting on it. It's just not that compelling of a story. But the thing is, there's so much false equivalency going on. It's like they want a misspoken sentence to be the exact same thing as the stochastic terrorism that every Republican is doing at every Trump rally that happens ever. Like, you know, you got Marjorie Taylor Greene being like, they're trying to kill you. And then you got Trump being like, we need to kill them. We need to kill all of the drug dealers, and then everything will be fine. Just death penalty for the drug dealers. And so they want a misspoken sentence to be the same thing as January 6th. They want it to be like equality where, the things that the Democrats do that are bad are covered equally with the bad things that the Republicans do. But like one is like completely bananas and the other is
Yeah.
like,
I
oh,
think
I went the
the
wrong direction for a minute. Like,
I am sure in my play, which you can see the poster of behind me, Curiouser and Curiouser, someone has gotten a line wrong. That
yeah,
happens. That's not a news story. Now, if someone beats someone up in the audience, it's like, well, that's extreme. That should get coverage. That's like no one should go to a show if I like and be attacked in that way. So it's clearly, yes, you say this ridiculous false equivalency. I recall Marjorie Green, like, Trump has threatened violence against McConnell's wife. Like you read it, like this is
yeah,
stuff
like
that just doesn't.
regularly. Like, oh,
Yeah.
it's like talking about, oh, well, the Second Amendment solutions people gotta, gotta watch out for them because they will kill you. And it's fine. Yes. This week we have a snake, is what's happening, going across my nails. So,
Yeah. If more people subscribe to our channel, and please do, I believe there are more Wonkette readers than people who want to see teenagers react to Madonna videos before they were born, or maybe not, because that's
yeah.
a growth industry. But subscribe, and there'll be some sort of bonus exclusive content, maybe surrounding Robin's nails or performing the Wonkette theme song on a ukulele, which so far has only been discussed offhand, but we've never actually done. But in all seriousness, Robin is a wonderful singer and performer, and we never get enough.
Yeah.
We get enough of that. So, but yes, so like, so share, subscribe, also on Facebook as well. Yeah, I don't. It's clear that Republicans are. How are they winning this media game? What do you think is it just that they just own
I
it
think it's
completely?
because they always, they're always at 11. And so if you're always at 11, like people are going to pay attention to you. People are going, people will go along with you. And I always say, I feel like I say this a lot, but if you just do stuff and don't care if people, how people react, yes, give us money. Thank you. That's always nice. But it's almost easier to carry off being ridiculous in some way than it is to try really hard to blend in, is one lesson that I've learned from my own personal life. Like, if you try and so you've got two people. One person does whatever the hell they feel like, says whatever the hell they feel like, wears whatever the hell they feel like. They're eventually going to be seen as more charming. A lot, I've used the word charming, and that's really like what it is. Basically, they're going to eventually be seen as more charming, more interesting than the person who is trying very hard to gauge what everyone else is thinking and fit in and be that. And it doesn't work. The person who tries really hard to fit in never ends up really fitting in. And that
Yeah.
is,
Well, Marjorie Taylor Greene is not seen as a drag. Like, she literally
yeah,
endorsed JD Vance, whereas Tim Ryan would run from obviously Warren and
yeah,
AOC. And the media itself would probably write that that's killing his chances if he were to be seen with AOC, even if she's popular
yeah,
amongst people who would need to turn out in larger numbers, right?
yeah,
But it's like we have a broad party, and which is what Republicans would say. It's like, well, I'm not Marjorie Taylor Greene,
yeah.
wink, wink, but we have a brood party, and I
Yeah,
respect
we're just
everyone
including
not part of our.
everyone. Everyone's invited to our party.
Yes,
Um,
which is a more positive message, but like, there's no fear that Marjorie Taylor Greene is going to cost anyone in a swing district their
yeah.
race, whereas
They're
still
not
people
worried that their
care.
friend is going to embarrass them in front of everyone.
Yes, that's just makes you
They
kind
don't
of
care.
so on a more critical note, So yesterday, Robert and I were
Oh
discussing the
yes.
work of Billy Ocean, and uh, specifically because I think there was a chance that before we were working together, we both independently of each other wrote about Billy Ocean's stalkerish line
Well, he has
in
a
his
lot of
songs.
terrible pickup lines. Like I think what I wrote was like, 10 Billy Ocean songs that would make really upsetting pickup lines. Like, get out of my dreams and get into my car. No, thank you, sir.
The video for that
Stranger danger.
is incredible. So he pulls up. There's this girl and there's other ladies. He's like, "Hey, you get into my car."
Yeah.
Who,
She's
me?
just trying to
Yes,
work her job
you
at the car wash.
get into my car, and her friends push her into
Yeah.
the car with the stranger, and then they go off in the song. Lover
Yeah.
Boy is his
Yeah.
earlier 1980s classic.
Yeah.
Is
No.
just kind of stalkerish and begins with this very kind of creepy Halloween music, like bum 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 bum, and it kind of builds,
Yeah.
builds, builds. It's like, well, this isn't sexy. It feels
No, it just feels
scary.
upsetting. And I don't think that anyone should ever call themselves a lover boy under any circumstance. The word lover appears way too much in every single one of his songs. And I say this as someone who I love Billy Ocean. Um, but like you listen to the lyrics and you're just like, oh no, this is just like a tribute to street harassment always. Like everything is like,
I think Billy Ocean has aged remarkably well. He's one of those guys
oh my God, he looks stunning.
his face got stuck at ugly and it just sort of stayed there and has not changed, which has its advantages. It's sort of like a sort of Abe Vigoda
Yeah.
as singers go. But then I think I had thought that Michael Jackson's had done similar sort of street harassment in the Way You Make Me Feel video, but then we both rewatched it and it looks like he is actually not harassing the lady. He's actually defending
Yeah.
her against
Yeah. He was like, hey guys, stop harassing this lady. And then he wooed her through the magic of dance.
Yes. And the stalkers, I think, became his backup dancers, which is what
Yes.
happened.
Yes. Which
The power of dance.
happens. It happens when you're hanging out at an abandoned auto parts store. I actually ended up going through like all of the music videos from Bad. And, I guess so. I just don't think anyone, it's just so bad now. I think it was probably less bad in the 80s when people used the word lover in songs, but now it just sounds terrible. Like if some guy was like, hey, I just want to be your lover boy, I would be like, that is horrifying. Please, no, thank you.
That song and that title would be more fitting for a like serial killer movie.
Yeah.
Like
It would
directed
be
by
a good
David
one.
Fincher, like Lover Boy. And and the music is playing for the trailer. And then he does the Get Out of a Dreams. You could even have both of them. It's a whole musical of a serial killer musical would involve those most Billy Ocean songs.
Yes.
They are not overtly romantic.
Even in like When the Going Gets Tough, like, can I touch you and do the things that lovers do? That's horrible. No, thank you. That's like
It's very hard to get enthusiastic consent from that.
Like, no, like that's not okay, Billy Ocean. I can't. This is no means no.
Thanks, that's okay. I feel like Prince was better with like we'll hold each other in the dark and imagine what silence looks like. It's like, oh God, it's so deep. That's like that's awesome, but like we'll touch you and do the things that lovers do. It's just like
no, thank you. Pass. I think the only way it is acceptable
on a type of argument.
I think the only way that it is acceptable to use the term lover in this day and age is if you're like a lady who is like I use a lot of my old timey slang a lot of the time. So if I was just be like, I think I'm going to take a lover, like that is okay and not weird. I mean, it's weird, but like it's not like creepy. I would also wouldn't say it like that, or maybe I would. But
Carrie Bradshaw embraced the word as far as promoting conspicuous consumerism. So whenever she would see a pair of shoes or a great walk-in closet, she'd go like, "Hello, lover." which
Oh
is
yeah. Okay. I'm saying, yeah, I've never actually seen an episode of Sex and the City, but I can imagine
so.
someone saying that and it would be funny and cute.
I
But
get
no,
so it's not a surprise to those watching that I've seen every episode of Sex and the City and the movies, and Robin has not. That is one of
yeah,
those. That is one of those like no one is stunned by this at this point if you've been watching either of us. Or
yeah, no,
I had a
like,
Sex and the City supplier for a while because a coworker of mine had HBO and I did not, and she would tape them for me and bring them to work for me. They
oh,
were
that is
hard to
so
watch.
lovely.
They were hard to watch because they would have the little blinding band, just like you are stealing HBO. So you're not going to be
Oh,
able
is that
to
a thing? I
enjoy
didn't
this.
even know that was a thing.
Yeah, because you've never tried to steal HBO for your cheap friend who wants to watch Sex and the City but doesn't want to pay for
No, I
HBO.
didn't have cable at all. So I actually just bought, like, my general entertainment was buying VHSs from the thrift store. So I've seen some very interesting movies that literally no other humans have seen. But yeah, no Sex in the City. You are so much more well versed in the general interests of basic white lady media interests of basic white ladies than I will ever be. Like,
That
I've
is
never seen Friends. I've never
sadly
seen half of
true.
these romantic comedies that you're like,
Not even Bride Wars.
no, I've never seen Bride Wars.
I highly recommend Bride Wars. I think I saw that on a plane though. I don't know. I was held captive.
So like they're brides and they're at war. Is that what's
Yes,
happening?
it is Anne
Is
Hathaway
it serious?
and oh, I'm forgetting Goldie Hawn's daughter, which just dates me that I
Yeah,
can
yeah, yeah.
Kate yeah, I'm forgetting. Goldie
Hudson.
Hawn's daughter. Kate Hudson, yes, is in that. Am a fan of the film. And um also someone Wars is a thing. Yes, it
Bride
is.
Wars is a thing. Yeah. No,
Yes,
I don't. Have I heard of that? I'm not even sure. I don't know.
Candice Bergen is in it and is
Oh,
awesome.
I do love Candice Bergen.
Yeah.
You know,
You probably
she
saw Miss
is.
Congeniality then, right?
Pardon?
Miss Congeniality. You've seen her in that, right? Wow.
No, I never actually saw Miss Congeniality.
You would enjoy that.
Me? No, I quite possibly would. I think I was very annoyed with Sandra Bullock for some reason. At one point, because it was all like, oh, she's the girl next door. So I automatically, like, when I was a teenager and in my early 20s, the second anyone was described as America's sweetheart, I was like, absolutely the fuck not. Like, that was just because,
Um,
yeah.
I
Again, being contrarian can get addictive.
I got married in 2009, so probably the lead up to my marriage, I'm watching Bride
So you're
Wars,
watching.
and but my wife and her best friend were getting along very well, and there was no war and no argument. In fact, and in fact, her maid of honor, I sent a copy of Bride Wars when it came out to it because she's an Anne Hathaway fan and she enjoyed it. So I, um,
I've
so
seen my
what
best friend's wedding. That was messed up. It's like,
yes, that was supposed to inspire Will and Grace, I believe, as I recall. Um, so as we wind down, what else is going on in the world before that is not unpleasant? Is there anything like
oh, geez.
anything interesting or exciting in the world of pop culture?
This week was the premiere of Real Housewives of Salt Lake City.
Ah, yeah.
So, very excited to see that one, Jen Shah going to jail. It actually is kind of interesting because, she's going to jail for doing a pretty horrible thing. She was
What did she do?
scamming. Yeah, she was scamming old people, or her company was. And so that actually is kind of relevant because I do cover scams. So that sort of counts as real news stuff.
I can imagine
But really, I'm
scamming.
just like, tell me more weird shit about Mormonism. And that's that's really why I'm watching. Also because fashion.
I would hope
I,
Sandra Bullock isn't.
I don't think she is. I feel
I'm
like she's not. Um,
she's going to while
I
Robin
know,
looks that
I'm
up.
Googling.
While Robin Googles, I think reminds me that Trevor Noah is stepping down as Daily Show host after 7 years. I think he had a good run. And I do hope that his replacement is another person of color or a woman, even better, to diversify.
Oh, they'd never have a woman.
Oh,
I don't think so. I don't know. I don't. I wish.
I mean, losing
Samantha Bee
was tough. There, but yeah, let's hope so. Come on, these are times where we need a woman's voice more than ever.
I'm honestly just like in a terribly skeptical mood right now about everything. Like,
yes. So Ziggy had commented on that. Was our GIF for the chat was appropriate because the next movie is Hitchcock's Psycho, one of my favorites, a great film. Once the Seattle Symphony did a version where you would go to the symphony, they would show Hitchcock and then they're playing the soundtrack music live, Bernard Herrmann score, and it was beautiful and one of my favorite Halloween experiences. So yes, Robin, the Daily Shoe would be great. Robin's the Daily Shoe. Maybe that's some of the more.
Let me tell you about my green snake skin boots that I just purchased. That is actually not a lie. I did purchase them. They're fantastic.
You should do that. Maybe, yes. Maybe that's
it's like Robin's nails and shoe hour. I'm so, like, this is the thing. We cover so much truly so many things that are truly depressing that sometimes I just need to be extremely shallow, and it makes me feel, it's like, it's how I compensate. Like I can't get done with work and then watch something terribly serious. No, I want to watch some ladies yell at each other about fashions and go to each other's events where they we're going on vacation together and we're going to these events, but we all hate each other and are enemies. That's what I need. And shoes.
As my childhood hero, Isaac Mizrahi would have probably said, fashion is not shallow. It's very important. The most important thing in the world.
No, I don't think it is. I mean,
I think you're right on. You're focused on what we need more of the Daily Shoe.
Yes.
Robin,
no, I think you consider fashion to be art, and so
yes,
I don't think I'm bad at writing. I'm not writing. I'm bad at drawing. So that is how I express myself visually. So
absolutely. Well, thanks everyone for coming in and joining us for the chat. As always, remember to share this because it can be viewed by your friends even after we're done, even though we won't be actually responding. And like the Wonkette YouTube, and keep coming back to Wonkette and joining our Patreon,
reading our things and liking us.
Yes, thank you.
And
thanks
also
everyone.
Give us money.
Yeah, yes, please give us money. We'll see you soon. Take care.
All right. See ya.